Women's economic empowerment for sustainable development and growth of the economy here in Uganda. A big topic of discussion here is women empowerment. And of course, we can include women into conversations, huge dialogues, or put them into pole positions to at least one champion discussions, lead conversations that rotate around empowering the entire economy as well, but also giving a helping hand, I should say, to the less privileged in spaces of the economy. Because it does seem like the opportunities are quite many if you have information and if you're ready to take them up and if you're ready to be resilient. And of course, that is why we are having such kind of discussions today here on The Point to try and as much as possible to see for the women involved in business or the women in business, how can you get into these spaces and how can you generally get involved in decision making into Uganda's economy today? There are quite a number of platforms, and of course, obviously, when you look at the cabinet currently, having more women than the men, it shows you how important and how fundamental the women have been for Uganda's economy in this particular term of the current sitting government. But I did mention that we're going to be talking sexual harassment in workspaces, or not only in workspaces, but generally in society, which seems to doom the hopes and goals of many women out there, not only the educated, but also the young ones who seem to get themselves into these spaces. I'll start with Rita here. Very huge concern if you're to look at the fact that the society we are living in, either way, you may not fall prey directly, but in the long run. Why are we in such situations in a world that looks more modernized than it was back in the time?
First of all, I think there is a scarcity of female mentors.
Okay.
When we talk sexual harassment in a workplace, it's very real. I have seen it happen. I have seen the risks, I've seen the signs of, and if you're not the kind of person who knows how real it is, you can easily fall prey into it. So because we don't have a lot of female mentors to lead these girls and say, this is what it looks like, this is what you need to stay away from. Yes. Many of them are falling prey to it. Okay, so what I think we need to do, first of all, like we discussed earlier, is help these girls understand this is what is going on. Maureen earlier alluded to grouping women together. When you put women in a network, put them in groups where they're able to help and support each other, depend on each other, that minimizes the risk out there. Secondly, we earlier said that we need to also make men champions of some of the things we're trying to do. This risk is real. And for some men, it seems like that's the way things are done. That's the way to go. So if we can also make these men understand what this means for the woman, for the girl child out there who's trying to make her way through, however, everything around is shooting at you. You know, you're fighting economic empowerment, you're fighting access to productive assets. Then you also have to hustle against sexual harassment. You know, all of that is shooting at this one person, this one girl who's trying to survive and make her way through.
Yes.
So if we can also make these male counterparts of this fight that we're doing, make them speak about these things, sensitize their fellow men and say, can we please give them space? You know, Uganda is one of those countries that has very good laws. You know, very, very good. If you look at our laws, they're very good. However, implementation is lacking.
Yes.
So if we can make sure that when we talk about sexual harassment and what it means and actually see it being implemented and done, that would also help us a lot as a country. It would help the girl child. But finally, bringing it down to some of our workplaces, we need to also be very intentional about setting up policies around sexual harassment in the workplace. For many of our organizations now, we've woken up to say gender equality is an issue. But we are also waking up to say, this is what sexual harassment looks like. This is what will happen if there is any smell of sexual harassment in a workplace for any girl. And we are making it very real for others to see and learn. And that is helping a lot of the spaces we are working in. So we need to make sure that it is scaled up for everyone to know, it is taken even in the most informal places, even if it's a market. If someone is harassing, even if it's as simple as a bad touch, what happens? What can we do in that space? Do we have systems, support systems set up? Do we have, she's into the informal sector and markets and all of that. If they have structures to say this is the leadership of the market, what happens if a woman is sexually harassed?
Yes.
Are there structures to address it? You know, so we need to look at it both from a smaller range, but also the bigger range to make sure it is addressed.
Okay. Maureen, the sexual harassment in society, especially in workplaces, creating a very huge challenge for women to at least make a living or achieve their goals in this business environment. How do we reach here and how are we getting out?
Thank you. Sexual harassment has always been here. And I think what is bringing it out more and people to appreciate that it's there and what to do, strategies to, you know, to ensure that we curb it is because of access to information now about it happening. The media is reporting about it. The NGOs are here trying to ensure that some of these issues are brought to the fora of the policymakers to ensure that our policies cater for some of the things. And me coming from the informal sector side, where I'm working with this community, and I'm seeing the majority are women, and we're having so many youth also who are in these spaces. But you know, sexual harassment doesn't even have a limit, whether you're an old person or you what.
Exactly.
So, and this community has all people coming from different worlds.
Yes.
But the question that I want to pose to us is that even the people who are imposing or we say they are harassing people or the perpetuators, do they know that this is sexual harassment? You see, sometimes we want to assume that people do understand, but they don't. And because there is, we had a male conversation circle we held and we were talking about these issues. And the man said, but me, I didn't know patting Rita, you know, it is sexual harassment. I used to take it like, you know.
It's a friendly
Yes.
gesture.
But you look at, I'll give an example of these young girls who are, they call them the food vendors, the ones who supply food in the restaurants. That those girls, what they go through,
They are at risk, even in restaurants.
They are at high risk because what we have seen that even when they deliver food to you, Donko.
Yes.
I'm just giving an example, not that you're the perpetuator.
Okay.
As in these men tell them frankly, you will come back later and you pick the money. And when she goes to pick the money, the guy says, I want to touch your boobies before I pay you. And remember, she has a boss. And like, madam, I want my money. You know, if you don't bring my money, I don't pay you. And she's earning on a daily. So what happens? She has to surrender.
Because of the society,
you know,
and the cost of living, the lots of things.
There's so many things around this person. But we have come out to sensitize the leadership about sexual harassment, which they have also appreciated because they also didn't know. But we set up the referral systems within the market that in case you've been harassed, you go and report. And this is how the system works. If it is rape, then it is on another level. It is also has, it is showing them that in case it is rape, this is where you go.
Okay.
That information wasn't there. We are telling the market leadership, ensure that there is enough lighting within the markets. Because most of these markets, you know, people are sleeping in the markets during the lockdown. Some corridors, they don't have lights. We have people who are smoking bungee, like
lots of things
happen in the market. And here you have the women sleeping here, the men. Really, that experience wasn't good. But sexual harassment is here. And even in the workplace, like Rita's already showcased it, it's there.
Okay.
It is there. So even in companies, they need to embrace this, sensitize their workers about sexual harassment, what it is, because you don't have to come and hold somebody accountable when they even didn't know what they were doing was them.
Yeah, it's sexual harassment.
Yes.
Let's talk about the fact that the women do, because women feel uncomfortable really, with this kind of situations. Even when you sit down with some of them to share their ordeals about the same, they will tell you this, that they're quite uncomfortable, but they have to live with it. How do they come out of this? Because at times it's mentally, it's a mental kind of thing. It's going to, the way you perceive certain things starts to change because of the experiences, the traumas and everything. How do they get out of this kind of, world and try to live within the means, however harsh it does seem to be?
One thing that we can do is we need to make our success stories visible and known.
Okay.
There's been a norm, or was there, where people would say, for you to get to this position, you must
Have done this.
You must have done this. You must give in to all of this. But there are many of us who've made it without having to bend low, without having to do all of that. So if we can make these girls see it is possible for you to grow and rise in rank and get to high positions without having to compromise on any of your values, then I think that will also help them know or break some of those norms around it. But before, many years ago, it was normal for someone to say, like she's explaining, you're in a market setting. If a man says, I have to touch you here to give you money, they assume it's normal. I mean, what is he taking away from me? Is my body going to change because he has touched me? No. But if you're able to show these girls that you can actually maintain your values, you can preserve yourself and get to where you're supposed to be, there is enough that you have to enable you to grow, to enable you to achieve your goals in life without having to compromise it. I think that will also help the girls be able to push themselves out of some of these barriers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maureen, what would be your take on that issue?
Yeah, for me, the take on that issue, first of all, I want to appreciate Ministry of Gender.
Okay.
Because they established the male engagement strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, which is also enabling organizations on how to engage the male counterparts. Because we realize that even if you raise awareness about, issues of GBV or sexual harassment, and you're just telling this information to the women, it might not take us a mile because the perpetuators are being left outside there. So we stay in the silos. So what we're doing, that this strategy is also helping people now to ensure that they embed and or engage the men as well. They might be on a, let me say on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be like 4 or 3, but at least there is a step being taken to ensure that these perpetuators can also limit on some of these, but also setting up those structures where women can have the safe spaces to talk about some of these issues, which they can handle. For example, the cooperatives that we formulated, women use these structures to talk about other things that affect them, and then find means of how to engage with their leadership or top leadership who are in charge of these.
Okay.
So it's very important.
And I think most of the women will be taking up the such in order to fight this gender-based violence. And not only that, also looking at the fact that we have to address sexual harassment. It's a very huge concern. Well, and these success stories need to be availed. I think that is the biggest challenge we are having in our country, because it is rare for even the most successful people, by the way, tend to hide some of these success stories from people, and then we're all living in shadows of trying to break the barriers. But then you don't know whether someone has experienced the same issue with you. At least if they share a story, you can easily know how to go by and know that you're not alone in the battle, and you have actually, have someone who you're looking up to who has survived. But now, as we continue to look at the social norms in Uganda, how can negative backlash be minimized in our society? Rita, for example, I'll start with you. We have these social norms. You come from, let's say, if a lady is in Uganda, for example, there are certain cultures or there are certain things a woman ought to do, and there are those that would be looked at as, as if you're going against the culture, beliefs and norms and stuff. And everyone, any other person from wherever they come from. How do you think we can create a new world where we are not going against, we are protecting these culture norms, but still moving in the direction of empowering the women?
First of all, I think we need to work within the social structures that we have.
Okay.
When we are talking about breaking gender norms, breaking stereotypes, and all of that, it's not a push factor. It's not something you come and want to do suddenly. Go to this village and say, no, 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 no. You know, a woman should eat on the same table with a man.
Sure.
It's a message that needs to be taken sensitively. You know, recognize how these people have been set up for so many years. Now, how you're going to break a chain of over 100 years needs to be done very, very carefully. So we need to recognize the structures that we have, first of all, and then work through them. If you are going to a society to say, I want to change their mindset about how they treat women, for example, what would happen if I go through their traditional leader? What would happen if I go through a religious leader, someone who they can relate to, someone who speaks their language, someone who lives among them? Then the message arrives easier than having an external party come and say, you need to change this, it's not working. There's going to be a thing to say, I mean, you're not part of us. Do you understand the culture? Do you?
Yeah.
But if it's one of their own, when the Kabaka of Uganda comes and says, treat women the same, allow women access these resources, allow them, the message is received better than a donor who's going to come and say, stop doing this, it's bad, it's, you know. That's one of the things that I think we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maureen, how do we then help these young women to protect their culture norms, but nevertheless not be influenced a lot by the cultures, in a way that if you're doing something, then the issue of the culture comes in and they're like, well, you're going against the norms of our tradition and stuff.
Yes. Culture is important.
Sure.
Culture shapes us and also enables us to set our values.
Yes.
So we don't have to have a fight with our culture, but using the engagement methodologies to ensure that we understand each other. Because now there are so many changes that have happened in the world. And we have, of course, our clan leaders who could be thinking differently from us. So how do we bring ourselves to position, but to speak up on some of these issues? Like I said earlier, that speaking up
is important.
Is very important. So if you don't speak up, you might not be listened to, and you might be oppressed. And the other person might not know that you're being oppressed. So how do we speak up and ensure that the culture is moving, but you're also moving? So for me, that community engagement with our people, and Rita has also said the opinion leaders, we need them. We need the religious people. Because sometimes those churches, you see, they are very powerful in changing people's mindset.
Yes.
So what are the churches saying? Because some of them are promoting
I know.
violence against women by law. Yeah. So how do we bring these religious leaders, the cultural leaders together? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes.
Now we have a very another concern here in regards to women engaging in some of the underrepresented sectors. It is changing, though, I must admit, but we've had only times where women were only attached to very few, where women are only attached to, let's say, business courses. Okay, it was helpful. But now, BBA, you've mentioned. So, SWA, name it. So those were the only courses that were giving women the opportunity. So any woman, you would go to, let's say, Makerere University Business School, and you find a couple of women there. You go to a school of, let's say, sciences at Makerere, it's only the men that are out, out multiplying more than the women. How do we put these women into that space now? Because it seems most of them are now enthusiastic and they love going into this, where they are challenging for these opportunities. Engineering, you've seen most of them going into technology, medicine, everything. How do we put them there, and so that we can have them staying, or even outnumber the men? You never know.
Our government has been very, very intentional about this. For example, when you look at university cutoff points, and they say for an engineering course, we need 20 for a man, we need 15 for a girl. You know, that's a way of encouraging the girls to go. When we say to get into this school, we need 4 for a woman and we need maybe 6 for a man.
Yes.
That's encouraging them to say, please come, giving them a leverage, giving them an advantage, an added advantage for them to be able to get into these courses.
Yes.
But also, as organizations, private sector employers, you realize usually now when jobs are being advertised, we will add a clause and say females are especially encouraged to apply. That is saying we are not marginalizing, we are not being selective to say we prefer men for an ICT job. We're saying it's open. Please come. Yes, we know you can do it. Please come and show us your capacity. We will include you. And for a number of organizations, we even go ahead to give the woman an added advantage.
Yes.
Because we understand there are so many other conflicting factors. So we will make sure that if you are coming, let's say, for an interview or something, we will put it at a time that's appropriate for a woman to make sure that you have every other advantage that a man would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maureen, before we go into a break here, how are we getting young women into these spaces? I love mentioning about putting them into these spaces because that way it is encouraging the rest to follow suit.
The spaces of STEM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, career guidance. Remember what I told you earlier?
Yeah.
Career guidance. How are we guiding our children? From what go when they're still young? We have those kids who are, you find your daughter who is a girl, she loves cars, she's, when you buy her car, she's opening it up. Then this girl, no, these are for boys. You see?
But lately women
What are you
driving huge
communicating?
vehicles, by the way, and
That's
it's a
what I'm
huge
saying, that as
example.
parents, we have a very big role to play. So it starts with the parents, the change in mindset for parents.
Yes.
And the other one is on the issue of the role models. Who are our role models?
Yeah.
Do we
What are
even
they
have
doing?
them?
Do we even have them?
For me, I will give you an example of myself. I did social sciences because of my best friend. Because she was doing social science, she was a class above.
Okay.
So I told her, which course? She told me social sciences.
And you're like,
Indeed, I
right.
dived in.
Okay.
But luckily enough, that my dad is an economist.
Okay.
But we found ourselves, because my dad is an M&E, like
Okay.
M&E guru. So
Okay.
like I found myself also diving in. Somehow I found my way.
Okay.
You see?
Yes.
But it was because of my best friend. But I could not tell my dad it was because of my best friend that I went and applied for social sciences.
He would question
You see?
Yeah.
So later in life, I said, I need to guide my children at a young age.
Yes.
On what? Because now, for example, I'm seeing my son is so interested in robot making. So I'm like looking for tutorials just, to show him what to do so that I can get him there where he wants to be.
Okay.
You see, my daughter enjoys farming, by the way. She told me, Mommy, I enjoy farming. And so we do some, just show her the things that can position her and to tell her that they are big farmers who are making money. Don't be put down that, farmers are broke, like in Uganda, how people look at farmers. In South Africa, in other countries, when they say this one is a farmer, my dear, they will give you way. But here in Uganda, farmer, but we are here because of the farmers. Tell me if the farmer had not grown the food, you will be here. You see, I think we have to change the narrative. What are we saying? What is the kind of message we are delivering to our children in regards to, their career development?
I know. And well, after the break, we are going to be summing up with our show today. Our conversation is rotating around women empowerment. So briefly, immediately, when we return, we shall be looking at how the international organizations, NGOs can help women. At least there are some scholarships that have been coming through into the country for years now, and they continue to come through. You've heard of the MasterCard, Visa sponsorships, and all that. So those are things that we're going to be looking at. How do we get these non-government organizations, the NGOs, from out of the country or international bodies? How can they get into this kind of discussion and help out the women in business and help them out in regards to growing and, of course, empowering them for future sustainable growth and, of course, resilience in the space of the economy? You're still watching The Point. We return with our last part of the discussion. Keep it here.